Good morning, everyone. Thank you for showing up, whether you're online or in person. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Attitudes of Being, Jesus' Evolutionary Path, which is my take on the Beatitudes. If you've been reading along with the Eric Butterworth book, my take's a little bit different, but I think it's a really great introduction. And I had planned this talk in September, and I had to go to Michigan and couldn't make it. And so I was just like, I'm going to use the same slideshow, and I'll just transfer it over. And then Sue talked about the Beatitudes last week, and I was like, oh, what a great introduction. That was really nice. So I want to get started. Actually, I kind of wanted to start talking about this the picture that I chose of Jesus, because it's one of my favorite pieces of artwork related to Jesus. And it was, the artist is within the LGBTQI community and found this broken little statue of Jesus. And it was just broken apart. And to be honest, being a part of that community, sometimes my initial reaction to things like that is just break it more. But instead, this person took it in. It's a beautiful story, took it in and made something beautiful as an expression of love, as an expression of Christ's love. And so I just find that really beautiful. And I just kind of wanted to, as we get centered and as we get into this, I just wanted to share that little bit of a story, because I know that a lot of people will look at this and they'll have some resistance to it. I had several pictures picked out. I had drag Jesus picked out and got a little bit of kickback for some of the images that I was like, maybe these. But I think that the story of this piece of artwork is very beautiful. So I just kind of wanted to say that before we just take a moment and just get centered and present in here. And so we'll do a little prayer, meditation, whatever time before we jump in. So you just take a deep breath. And I always exit with, and take another deep breath. And it's said that the sound of ah is a creative sound, and we hear it in words that describe the creative presence, like God or Allah or Buddha or Tao or Messiah. And so that, to me, is a part of our creative expression, and I use it pretty much daily in my meditation. So let's take another deep breath in and just exit with We just come to this room, we just stay present, or if you're online, present where you are, knowing that you're safe, feeling the peace that's within your own heart and allowing that to move through your body. And we'll do ah one more time. Deep breath in. And then All right, so we can get started. I actually, this morning, when I was thinking about this, I kind of wanted to give some context to this particular talk, because I am talking about the Bible, and I wanted to give a little bit of my history just to give some context. So I grew up in the Nazarene Church and was baptized in the Nazarene Church. Then I went to a Baptist church. My parents decided that most of our family was Baptist. It would just be easier to be Baptist, so I was baptized in that church as well. Then I lost my mouse. Okay, there it is. Then when I was 14, I decided to come out. And to be honest with you, I didn't grow up with the idea that being gay was wrong or bad. No one ever said anything. So when I realized this is just a natural part of my being, it was a surprise to me, the backlash that I received, because I'd never heard that there was anything wrong with it, because it was something that we didn't talk about. But after I came out, it was something that we talked about a lot. And at 14, I said, this whole God thing must be nonsense, because I know, there's nothing I can do about this. This is it's just a part of who I am. And so I kind of stepped away, and I stepped away until I was 20 years old. I just was I read some atheist material, and I said, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And that's just, how I maintained my existence for that period of time. And then at the age of 20, I was hit by a car. Someone tried to kill me outside of a gay bar at age 20. And that's when, I've talked about it here in this class, I had a near-death experience. And that kind of woke me up a little bit. The only context that I had for any spiritual experience was Christianity. And so after that, I went right back into the church. In fact, I had people tell me, this is kind of a consequence for being gay. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. So I went back into the church. But my experience back in the church, it wasn't necessarily negative. I joined an Assembly of God church. And the people in the community were very kind. The issue that I had was being gay and not really knowing what to do with that. And I found conversion therapy, which was a part of the denomination that I had chosen. And I got rebaptized again, twice in that church. I know, right? I'm like, if that's the way, I'm definitely getting in. But no, it's not. So, well, at least. So, yeah, and so in those 5 years, I went to Bible school. I was going to become a minister. And just recently, within the past 3 weeks, I went to a school that's in Kansas City that also has 24-hour prayer. It's not Unity. That would have been great, but it wasn't Unity. And I realized, this whole being gay thing is not resolving itself, even after what they considered therapy and all of that. And so I was like, I'll just pray the rest of my life. I'll just focus my entire life on prayer. And I didn't even realize what I was doing was I was kind of cutting myself off from interaction with people. And because what I really wanted at the time was just to be a minister. And so, so I did that for a while. And then I just began to realize through observing the experiences of other people that went through conversion therapy. Oh, by the way, I was rebaptized again there too at the school. So that's number 5. That's number 5. So I've been baptized 5 times.
With 6, you get egg roll.
Oh, you get an. Oh man, do we baptize? No. I don't know if mine count anymore. So what I ended up doing at one point was I was going to say this anyway, but yeah, what I ended up doing at one point was I unbaptized myself to as a form of deconstruction a few years after, and I renounced all of the vows that I made throughout my religious history from childhood onward. And I think if we're deconstructing, particularly deconstructing a highly religious system, especially if it's been introduced at childhood, I think that's kind of a lifelong process. I don't think it's a one and done thing. So even the renunciation, I thought, I'm going to renounce this, I'm going to unbaptize myself, I'm going to practice some blasphemy, and then I'll be fine, And that's not what happened. I was not, and I'm still working through this. In fact, I was going to talk about this. Right? I was like, I'll be good. I think I was 25 at the time, and I was like, I think this is just what I needed to do. But I think it was a good foundation for me, but then I had to untangle all of the things that I had learned throughout my childhood. The one thing that I did get while I was in that 5 years of conversion therapy and Bible school is that I practiced a lot of prayer, but most of my prayer was centering prayer, was meditation. I was highly influenced at the very beginning by Brother Lawrence, Practicing the Presence of God. And I don't know if you've never read that book. It's really great. It's short. And that really taught me how to experience the presence of God just in my everyday life. Just washing the dishes and having a conscious connection with God. And teaching myself in every circumstances, it's kind of like what we believe. God is in all things and everywhere. But how often does our conscious awareness deviate from that? And then what happens? We start moving really fast and we create some chaos, but that's okay. But so that's a bit of my religious history. It was through observing what happened to people that had been through conversion therapy. I've known a lot of people that have committed suicide or drug overdoses or, just didn't make it out. And that's what motivated me to, I love when people consider themselves a Christian. I don't consider myself a Christian because to me that means something. That word specifically means something. But I did want to, there we go. So I did want to talk a little bit too about why would I choose something from the Bible, because, and I talked to Sue about this, and I'm just going to say it, but so sometimes I find it a little cringy when people in Unity say the Bible is the primary textbook of Unity. Whether that's, that's fine that that's true for Unity, but for me, making the Bible special has been problematic. And I even look at history and I think that making the Bible special is problematic throughout history. Now, I do think it's important, and I tend to speak more from the Bible because I've read the Bible all the way through probably 10 times. I've studied a little bit of Greek and Hebrew, and I mean, I really actively invested my attention. So I know the Bible more than I know the Bhagavad Gita or other religious books, the Tao Te Ching. I just know it better. And so I tend toward, speaking more from the Bible. One time Sue has said, I really like all the research you do. And I'm like, yeah, this stuff is just in my head. So, and my experience with the Beatitudes, so this is the second time I've done a New Thought and World Religion class on the Beatitudes. My experience with the Beatitudes is a 20-year experience. One of my very early teachers said to me, if you just meditate on the Beatitudes, you'll figure out how life works. And I kind of took that to heart. And so it's something that, I've went away from it and came back to it, especially when I was, intentionally practicing the blasphemy or, so I was not really into the Beatitudes. But, and I think the Bible is a significant book. But again, I personally don't see it as a special book. I think that there are many other ways to understand the divine and understand those. Does anybody else have an allergy to the Bible or an experience with the Bible that they might want to share?
Kind of a love-hate relationship.
A love-hate. I could say mine is that way now. There are times when I'm like, no. Actually, I was talking to Matt this morning. We were talking about in Proverbs, the answer to depression is alcohol. And that's the prescription for it. I'm like, that's absolutely nonsense because that's a depressant. That's not going to fix anything. And so, there are a lot of things in the Bible that are quite problematic. So, yeah. Would you mind handing him the, yeah.
Thank you. Turn it on.
Test. Hello?
Oh, there you are.
Okay. My problem with the Bible is, I was raised by atheist parents, and they put that thought in my mind about how so much of the Bible is not from God; it's from man.
Mm-hmm.
So much, or
I would say all
things. Possibly all, yes. But I never could. But once I got into church, it would always just stick in my mind that, hey, this stuff is not, they keep telling me it's from God through men, but I'm thinking, man, they did some embellishing here or there, and they put in that thing, a lot of little things that advantaged them being the people in the churches who were we're going to be able to to manipulate the masses for their own gain. Mm-hmm. And I've never gotten over that, and it's just something that I have to deal with, I guess, for lifelong, because it just bothers me. And it really, to me, it's the ultimate betrayal, because it's really putting obstacles between people and God to add this other baggage that they've added in the Bible.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the same way about every spiritual book, because the answer isn't in a book. And so, I kind of read the Bible now as I read any other book. And the Fillmores are a great example. I love the Fillmores. And I was definitely in a very culty part of the Christian faith, right? And so when I felt Spirit say go to Unity, I kind of dug my heels in. And it was before I even moved to Springfield, and I knew I was supposed to go to this particular church. And I kind of dug my heels in. So what I did was I got a lot of the Fillmore's books. I read Eric Butterworth. I just read all of these books, and to make sure I wasn't joining a cult. I needed it was very important for me to understand what is this all about, and where are they coming from. And I love what Charles and Myrtle talk about. And there are many times, especially with Charles, well, first of all, Charles disagrees with himself a lot. But there are many, a lot. But there are many times, huh? He reserves the right to change his mind. And I love that. And so there's a lot of times when I'm reading a Charles Fillmore book that I'm like, I'm sitting there arguing in my mind. And I do that with the Bible too. And it's not that I'm saying that Charles was bad or wrong. It's that consciousness is evolving on the planet. And what we do know, what we can see in the Bible, especially when we consider Jesus as the expression of the Christ, what we do see is an evolutionary paradigm where we see a very tribal part at the very beginning and a very inclusive and open part at the very end. And when I view it that way and I'm going, yeah, they didn't really get it here, but then there are certain parts where they did get it. And, I like what Wayne Dyer says. He says, God writes all the books, writes all the plays, stars in all of them. I kind of feel that way. Because, it's like what we say in Unity. There's only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good omnipotent. And that's actually what the Beatitudes for me are all about, is the evolution of consciousness. I think Dee has a question too. Or comment.
A comment.
Comment.
Yeah. Early in my Unity life, I looked up the word cult.
Mm-hmm.
And a cult is any like-minded group. So
Interesting.
It could be a political party, it could be a Baptist, it could be like-minded group. So I thought that was quite interesting that people would call us a cult.
Yeah. Well, I would
We're
never.
not a cult.
Yeah, I would personally never call any group a cult. Just at face value, I want to know what's going on. And from my own personal perspective, I use what's called the BITE model. And if you're interested, just look it up. But I look at the BITE model to see what patterns exist within an organization or within a group to determine whether or not it's cult-like. And when I say cult, I mean something that does more harm than good. And Unity certainly does more good than harm. In fact, I haven't experienced a lot of harm, so I think if you're here, you're good to go. Been here for a few years, great people. So yeah, but that's where I'm at. And about the Beatitudes, so I certainly take a different approach to the Beatitudes than Charles Fillmore or even Eric Butterworth as we're reading through the Beatitudes. I do not see the Beatitudes as a formula. I don't take them individually out of, I say out of context, but I don't take them individually as just these singular statements. But instead, I take them as an entire experience of the evolution of consciousness. And I really hope to get through at least 3 of them today, and then we'll talk about the rest of them next week. And it's not that I see. There's certainly some wonderful programs out there. I think that sometimes we look more towards programs rather than the answer, which is within us. That if you really want to experience qualities that are, shown in the Beatitudes or in any spiritual practice, you have to do the work, which in my experience is prayer and meditation, or meditation and prayer. I personally think that meditation, I've practiced meditation consistently for 20 years, and I think that has been far more influential even than prayer for me, is getting centered and paying attention to my thoughts, because it gets me centered in other areas of my life too. And the creative potential begins to awaken because we start channeling something different. The answers are really in the silence. So for me, I don't see these as steps. Again, I think there are some wonderful steps, step programs out there. I had one throughout my adult life that has been really helpful. There's 12 of them. And, I think that's fine. But any program that you're invested in, any spiritual practice, those qualities of prayer and meditation are really what will be the catalyst for you. Or, well, I don't know. I can't say for you. I know for me that they're the catalyst for me in any experience that I've had that has brought value to my life and to my communities. So that's where I'm at with that. And that's just the intro to the Beatitudes. And by the way, okay, this is why I don't think that they're a step program, because the last one is blessed are those who are persecuted. If that's a step program, I'm not taking it. I'm not really, I'm not interested. Really, Jesus, that's the goal? I don't think. But I don't think I really want to go there, the whole thing, it's blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. And, can you imagine 21 days of getting reviled, persecuted, and lied about? That type of a program. That's why I don't think these are a program. However, I do That's the same. I think that's the same slide. I do see them as a way of being over becoming. Because I think a lot of times in our STEP programs or in our, the books that we read, we're really trying to become something. What I really think, when I think of the Beatitudes, I think of them as states of being. And where we're at given, where we're at in consciousness related to a specific area of life. And there are areas that I'm personally still working on. There are areas where I'm probably still on, step 1 maybe. I said it wasn't steps, but the level 1. We'll say level 1 in the Beatitudes. And there are areas where I'm absolutely at the end of the stages, which really the last stage for Jesus was the 7th and not the 8th one. In fact, in numerology, in most numerological traditions, number 7 means completion. That's why we have 7 days of the week. It means completion. And so, but the 7th one is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. But then, as a peacemaker, because it doesn't say peacekeeper, it's a little bit different. But the peacemakers will be called children of God. But then the very last one about persecution, what it says is the same as the first beatitude. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And to me, as I've meditated on this and as I've centered on this, it kind of tied it together. I'm like, whoa, this is just a single thing to let us know where we're at in consciousness related to a particular situation. And as we were talking about the Beatitudes in my small group this week, I was like, just as an example, one area where I have sort of reached that point is related to being gay. And I will tell you that I have experienced that persecution aspect of it, but here's the thing, is I know my source related to that particular area. I know, and I'm, in the peacemaker part, and we're all peacemakers, because we're all children of God. This is our truest identity. This is our state of being. But in that area, if I speak to someone within the LGBTQI community, and they are in a really dark place, I do have the ability to be a peacemaker because I've worked through all of those things. And I mean, and your capacity to be a peacemaker is probably very different than mine because we have different life experiences. But when we begin to self-actualize and we begin to experience these qualities that exist within the Beatitudes, that's when we become peacemakers. And that's when I think it's so funny when I was doing West Shore Pride, which was a project that I did in Michigan where it was kind of a community project because there was no LGBTQI support in the whole area. And so we were like, this can't be this way. And so we created community there. And when I did that, I had a lot of people from religious circles kept saying, you're a Christian. And while I would say I'm a devotee or follower of Jesus, like, I've already said why I don't really identify that way. I think it's great. If that's what brings you peace, that's wonderful. It's just not for me. But I would always kind of push back a little bit. I was like, no, I mean, I think what Jesus said is really great, but I don't know if that's my path. I'm probably not going to go to your church because everybody wanted me to go to their church. I'm like, you're not even an inclusive church. Why would I go there? I will tell you, I had a wonderful experience back in September going back to Michigan. So we spent a lot of energy and a lot of time building a community there. And I actually had no idea how much influence I had on that because I was just the vice president. I was like, I don't want to be at the top. But I was the one who I tended to go out and, if there was somebody asked us to speak at an event, I was the one who did stuff like that. Well, it dissolved right after I left. I mean, part of that I think was, I moved in 2020 and we had COVID. And I just don't think it was sustainable after COVID. But this community that was very, very, very conservative. Going back there, I mean, you would never see anything like political signs, unless they were very conservative. But you wouldn't see things like rainbow flags. You wouldn't see trans flags. You wouldn't see, something like Black Lives Matter. And if there was, it would just be one isolated occurrence, right? Going back in September, I drove around the whole city. Okay, wait. Okay, I drove around the whole city. Every single street of every single little community, or every single place that I went, there were Black Lives Matter, trans, and gay pride flags. Everywhere. And it was September. It wasn't gay pride. That's June. They do it in June. And I was like, okay, we had an impact on this community. And that's what I mean by being a peacemaker. I was talking to Sue a couple weeks ago, and she said, we need to do, or I wish we could do that here in Springfield. I'm like, yeah, we can. Yeah, I mean, it's a bigger community, but we can do that. Like, that's possible. I think the main reason why we don't see that here is because people are afraid. And the one thing I'm really good at is helping people realize you don't have to be afraid. You know, even in the face of opposition, you don't have to be afraid. At our events, at our first major event, which was a Pride event, we had events every month, but our major one, the very first one, we had a lot of people picketing. We had a lot of opposition. And I went up there, and I just talked to all of them. And I added some of them on Facebook, and we just had a conversation. And guess what? That was the only time anybody ever picketed our events. In fact, I think I offered them water, too. I was like, you guys look thirsty and didn't bring water. I think, you know. And so that's peacemaking. But what I'm going to describe in the first 6, I believe, is what Jesus was explaining as the evolutionary path toward peacemaking. And I probably should get into the Beatitudes if we're going to talk about any of them. So the very first one, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Does anybody want to just tell me what, I like hearing other people's thoughts. I'm not saying my way is the only way or the right way, but does anybody want to take a stab at what this might mean?
I kind of see it as those who are downtrodden, and to me, I see the Beatitudes as those who are persecuted, and that Jesus, if he really came up with these, is standing up for those who are in a hard place. Mm-hmm. And letting them know that they are right there at the top.
Yeah, that's good. Anybody else? I will go to, so in Spirit, which if you are reading the Power Within, the Butterworth book, Butterworth does focus a lot on the in spirit part, which I think is fine. Unfortunately, in all of the other places where this exists, the in spirit part isn't there. You know, so we see in the Gospel of Thomas and in Luke, it just says, blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thomas and what?
The Gospel of Thomas and Luke 6:20.
Oh, okay.
Is Thomas the book what's the name of the church that shows the chalice? There's one over on South Street.
Methodist.
Christian church.
Clay. Maybe disciples.
The Gospel, so this was a relic from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's just a bunch of sayings of Jesus. And so it has some of the Beatitudes in it because that is a common, these were common sayings as the movement of early Christianity took off. And so, but in some of the earlier places, we didn't see blessed are the poor in spirit. We just saw blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
The first Christian memes.
Right, the first Christian meme. I love that. That's lovely.
But I love that because to me, when you take out the in spirit, that makes it more inclusive. It makes it to where, people who maybe haven't even had any connection with God, but they're poor and they're out there, they're struggling. They need the kingdom of heaven too. Mm-hmm. We tend to, I can only speak for myself, but I tend to forget about them and just figure, they'll just fend for themselves. But that's the whole purpose of the church, is to not let that happen and to make sure that the poor don't have to fend for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is this on? Okay. So this changes a lot. I went to Israel with a guy who had a leper colony praying for the people that went to Israel with him. And they were incredibly poor. He was kidnapped. He was a musicianary. And someone took him to this leper colony. And when he first went, one of the signs of peace is this, when you're landing in an airfield. And they were going like this, and the guy said, they don't have any fingers, they're holding their hands up. He offered to buy generators and to do things for them. And they said no, because that way they would be tempted to not be reliant on God for everything.
Interesting.
And they were totally reliant on God for all of their needs. And they would ask him, you can really buy any house you want and you can buy any car you want in America. How do you deal with that temptation?
Interesting.
And so this takes me back to total dependency, total surrender of everything to the provider. So that's kind of, and he said it was the most amazing, it just humbled him. It was the most amazing experience that he had ever experienced. And
Interesting.
this like fits right in because he said it was heaven being there.
Yeah. Yeah, and so when I talk about this as patterns within consciousness, we have to all start out here. Like this is like, if actually in the 12-step program, this is like the first 3 steps. You know, we have to recognize that our lives are unmanageable and then find a solution for that. And but the result of this, well, actually, I kind of want to talk about, you know, seeing it this way, blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, would give a lot of new thought teachers a fit. In fact, Charles Fillmore said, it is a sin to be poor. Does anybody have a thought on that one? Sue?
Let me just say I don't always agree with everything that the Fillmores say.
Okay.
I don't, so yeah.
So here's the thing. I actually agree with him. I think Jesus agrees with him too. Now, it's because in unity, when we talk about sin, we are not talking about a moral issue. I mean, actually, most New Thought, we're not talking about a moral issue. We're talking about a pattern in consciousness that deviates from the truth.
Like a disconnect from God. In other words, something that disconnects you from God.
Exactly. So when we recognize, blessed are the poor, what do they get? What's the result? For theirs is the kingdom of heaven, right? Well, what is the kingdom of heaven? We know it's within. We say that a lot. It's really wonderful. But the reality of it is we are tapping into the power that creates universes. And by the way, I did want to say one comment to what you said. If somebody ever wants to give me something, I usually just receive it really graciously. Yeah, I love abundance. That's one of the areas where I would say I'm still evolving in my own consciousness in that area. But yeah, I mean, for me, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's a wake-up call. And the reality is, I don't care if you're Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, or you're still, compared to infinite abundance, you're poor.
That's true.
And so, to me, when we're evolving our consciousness in a specific area, the goal is not to stay poor, but to receive the blessing of the kingdom. And recognize that our need is infinite, because we're infinite beings. And so as we step into the abundance of heaven, what we're doing is we're channeling more and more and more of that limitless potential. Now, this is not about, now I would say this, I wouldn't even say Charles Fillmore is talking about monetary wealth, because that's more of an ego thing anyway. There are a lot of people with power and wealth that are demonstrating principle outside of an understanding of where it's coming from. They might have grown up very wealthy, and so they already have a consciousness that allows them to receive that part, but maybe they're missing a lot of the other patterns in consciousness that the Beatitudes talk about. And that's fine. That's where they're at in consciousness. You know, they have total freedom. They're still a child of God, even if they don't know it yet. So, and that's why I really love the Beatitudes, because it really gives us an understanding of where we might be at related to any particular situation or, topic. Go ahead.
I just had a thought here. Who's better, you or let's say Elon Musk? Who's better?
Better?
Yeah.
I see us all as equal.
Who's more important?
More important? Interesting.
No, I'm asking James. I'm asking James.
More important. To me, I am more important.
Okay. The world, what I'm getting at is the world sees Elon Musk as very important, right?
Right.
They see Jeff Bezos as very important. They see Donald Trump as very important. They see Bill Clinton as very important. And you're considered a nobody, right? But in God's eyes,
Right.
who is? And I think that's where, to me, I put this in a historical perspective. You know, the early Christians were very persecuted. They were nobodies, you know. And I think that's what Christ was trying to do. He was trying to build them up
Yeah.
to who they really are.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I see this poor in spirit.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, to expound upon that concept of why they were persecuted, obviously the Romans saw them as a threat and saw this movement as potentially usurping their power. Because frankly, I've seen this throughout I'm not a real observant person, but I have noticed that anytime one of the powers that be feels threatened, one of their biggest fears is for the populace for some movement to get the attention of the populace and then take the attention off of them and thereby lose their basically become superfluous.
Yeah. Well, and we also, just the story that I told about my experience in community building and the result of that, because seeing the results of that, I was like, oh my goodness, like we made a huge difference. And I'll tell you, so we're going to be talking about, actually let me see if I'm ready to go to the next one. Oh, okay, we're going to touch on that in the next Beatitude. But I did want to talk about H. Emily Cady as well, because she says, you may think you want many things, but everything you really want is God. So, and I think that is the Beatitudes as well, and I think that this really ties us into the very next one, because you need a new car, or you need a house, or you need this, or you need that. But we already know that the only presence and power in the universe and in my life is God the good omnipotent. So what we're really saying is I need God as a manifestation of a car. I need a house as a manifestation of a car. And a lot of people don't really understand their own desires. So there are people out there that are like, I need the big house and the fast car, which is not bad. That's not wrong. But oftentimes, they don't even realize what their actual desire is. They think that the big car, or the fast car, or the big house is going to make them happy. When in fact, the fast car might be they desire status. The big house might be that they are desiring stability or security. And if they focus their mental and emotional attention on that, and they tap into heaven on those actual desires, they might get the big car or the fast house, but what I can guarantee is they'll get stability, security, and some sort of status, because that's their innate desire.
I really want James to keep going.
Yeah. So my goal is to get through 3 of these, and so that's what H. Emily Cady said. That actually leads us to not the next one, but I'm going to go to the next one. All right. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. And to me, this one is the chemicalization. Because when we start tapping into heaven, there's oftentimes this untangling process that we have to deal with. I talked about deconstructing my own religious past, and that there was a lot of grief there. And some of it was painful. In fact, I drove to Kansas City. Like I said, this is a lifelong process, but I drove to Kansas City and in Kansas City. And that school was very charismatic, and so and the very first thing when I got there was somebody prophesied over me, and the prophecy was how despicable I was. Wow. That what was, I'm trying to think of the exact, because 2 days ago I knew the exact words because I just drove by it 2 days ago. and that my whole body as I was driving by was in pain, and that prophecy came up, right, in my mind. And I said, you son of a bitch. I forgot the child of God part. Yeah, I did that. I did that on my way. I did the child of God when I passed by it again on my way home. Immediately, yeah, immediately, all of the pain left my body. And I realized, wow, how much power was I giving to this person that said this about me? I mean, I know one of the words was despicable. I'm surprised I can't think of what the actual, maybe it's just gone. Maybe it's gone. The pattern is gone from my mind. So, yeah, but I think that this is what this means, that we have to really untangle it before we're really able to channel our true power. We need to see all of the barriers before the power. And so blessed are those who mourn means you really have to do the work. And if you start prayer and meditation, make sure that you have a good support system, because and the comfort will come. But I'm telling you, I just went through a chemicalization of my own just a few weeks back. And I'm so grateful for Sue to listen. She, I bawled and squalled, and she listened to me on the phone, and she says, it's okay. This is not going to last forever. You'll find your center again. And I have friends that, they invited me to things. I said, I just want to let you know I'm a mess. And they're like, that's okay, James. We've all been a mess. I had a friend one time, he was a musician, and he was playing on his piano, practicing. This was when I was in the Christian church, and he was like, my life sucks! And somebody yelled, it's okay, it's not going to suck forever! That's this pattern. When we connect with the power that's within us, the reality is anything that stands up against that power has to go. And sometimes that's painful. Sometimes we have to grieve over all of the decisions that we made out of fear and limitation. But just know that in that, you will be comforted, and that your power will find its expression as you're comforted. And that's what the rest of the Beatitudes are about. I'm only going to get through 2, but that's okay. But we can get through the other, whole series. The other ones next week. But I did want to give you the definition of chemicalization from the Revealing Word, Charles Fillmore: a condition in the mind that is brought about by the conflict that takes place when a high spiritual realization, so heaven, contacts the old error state of consciousness. And that's exactly what this Beatitude is all about. It's like you have to actually go through it. And we can block it off. I mean, for goodness sakes. I'm shocked that 15 years ago, I'm still dealing with some of the stuff that I went through in Bible college, but that's okay. And I want to say sometimes mourning does not have to be extremely painful. Sometimes this chemicalization process doesn't have to be awful. Sometimes it's instantaneous, like it was when I was going to Kansas City. And instantaneously, I realized, wow, I'm still carrying this thought around. And then, I was able to let it go. Are we done? Oh, okay. Okay, don't be done. Okay, so I'm going to give you my affirmative denial that I use anytime things look really chaotic outside. I am willing to release the pattern in my consciousness that is causing this condition. Some people don't like the idea of causing, and so usually I give those people, I'm willing to release the pattern in my consciousness that is contributing to this condition, although I prefer the causing this condition for me. So to me, that's the affirmative denial that I would use for this particular Beatitude. And when you are willing to work through, I'm just not going to get to all of these, but when you're willing to work through the patterns in your own consciousness, you will begin to experience all of the rest of the patterns tied to these Beatitudes, which we're going to talk about next week. Do we have announcements? Somebody want to do announcements?
Preach it.
Oh, no, Dee, no, I'm sorry, Dee. Yeah, I want Dee to say something. No, for sure. I love it when Dee speaks up. So yes, please.
Because she was very scared to speak up in the beginning. I couldn't even say my own name when I went to a Unity class.
Yeah.
However, I've overcome that. But chemicalization. In my early days in Unity, I went through several, and they're not always just emotional. There were several times that I was actually physically sick. And the sooner I could come back to, oh, that's what's happening, the sooner I could overcome it.
Yeah.
But it can cause all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, even in experiences, just with other
Yeah.
people and stuff. Yeah.
Things to just kind of show you that that's not really the truth.
Yeah.
Whatever was isn't the truth.
Yeah. That's why I go to that affirmative denial, and I've been using that for 15 years. I am willing to release the pattern in my consciousness that is causing this situation or this experience. So, but I think
Are you saying that you're done talking now, James?
Yeah, if you want to read the announcement.
Okay,
I mean,
is
like,
it-
what
well,
time do we have?
We have, another 4 minutes. If you
4 minutes?
If you are done talking,
4
are
minutes?
there any
Well,
comments?
Actually, that's where I'll go. I kind of thought I needed to be done now, but yeah. Does anybody have any other comments or questions or?
I was just going to comment earlier about the song I sang at the talent show, Mercedes-Benz. It to me dovetails right into that. It's a outcrying by the songwriter, "Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz?" But they're missing the point. The point is they have to develop that pathway to the spiritual path to, what's it called? What do we say? What we're all building here, a path to spiritual
Awakening?
That's it.
Okay.
Awakening. Because we don't, God's not going to just hand us a Mercedes-Benz. I mean, not to say you might not get one, but it doesn't work that way just to look at our higher power as a Santa Claus.
Yeah. Well, and I think that if you work through consciousness, you might get to the actual desire. You might be able to release all that, and your desire is actually, and your purpose is actually to get the Mercedes-Benz, and that's beautiful and that's wonderful.
You just have to be open to it.
Yeah. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
No.
Anybody else? Oh, right behind you.
I just want to say I'm appalled anyone could ever say that you're despicable. You're a ray of sunshine, and I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you.
And just thanks for being here.
Aw.
Oh, and also, remember when you were talking about these important people? I just would like to say I hardly know who a single one of them is, and you are way more important.
Well, thank you. I know in my life I'm more important too, so.
We love you, by the way.
Thank you. I love being here. I love this whole community, so. All right, announcements?
Do you want to read them?
No? You start deconstructing things and you gain really strong self-respect too. It's really wonderful.
You're telling yourself that.
Okay. Thank you, James. And can we just go ahead and give James a round of applause right now?
Thank you.
Such a great teacher.
Okay, so calling all bag angels and plarn makers. There will be a working lunch today following the service today. The lunch is provided by the mat makers of the Ozarks for those who choose to stay and work. At 1:30, our teens are hosting Dances of Universal Peace to raise consciousness and promote peace between diverse religions. Everyone is invited to attend. Please stay after service if you can help us stack chairs to get ready for the Dances of Universal Peace. Okay, on October 30th, the New Thought World Religions class will be taught by
Part
James
2.
Masters, Part 2, Attitudes of Being, Jesus' Evolutionary Path. We have 2 females requesting a ride to church. Please see Dee or Brandy if you would volunteer for however many Sundays a month is convenient for you. Tomorrow evening, the 24th at 5:30, there will be a thorough training for crisis cold weather shelter volunteers at the O'Reilly Center for Hope, located at 1518 Eastdale. And I know our Lisa is the one who's teaching that.
Mm-hmm.
So
What street is it?
Dale Street, D-A-L-E.
Have you ever been there? I highly recommend going early and seeing if somebody will give you a tour. That place is amazing.
I know that Sue and I are going to be going in, and we definitely want a tour.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's in that same building.
Yeah. Okay, so hope to see you there then.
Elementary school.
Yeah, it did. It was converted. Yeah, you're right. On November 6th, we'll be holding a friendship potluck after service. Will you bring a meat dish or a vegetarian main dish, a side dish, salad, or dessert? Be thinking about what you will bring. There will be a sign-up sheet next Sunday. Beginning November 1st, we have a paid staff opening for volunteer coordinator. Note, Lisa is not going anywhere and will still be here to volunteer. Please see D for a job description if you're interested in the position.
What position?
Volunteer position, volunteer coordinator, yeah. It's Lisa is, I guess you'd say stepping down, but
Well, she's got a lot.
Yeah, she's got a lot on her plate right now, and as it says here, she's not walking away, but we need someone to
Bring up
coordinate.
the opportunity for somebody else to step up and serve.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah,
That's a good way
that's
of
good.
putting it.
Very well said.
Okay, and then Sue, it says Sue is going to be talking about after service. Spook Truncular is October 29th at 5 p.m. Sign up in the foyer if we'll be decorating your trunk. Jen welcomes contributions of fruit trays or veggie trays, candy, and Little Debbie Halloween cakes for the kiddos. And that's it. And if that is it, let's go ahead and get in a circle in the back of the room.
Right.